Welcome to North Point. Great to have you with us today. I want to welcome our Springfield campus. That is correct. Good to see you. Good to have you with us today. I want to welcome our Nixa campus as well. I'm excited. We got one more month in this Nixa facility that's been a gift for so many years until we move into that new building the week of September 9th and 10th. And so thanks for being with us there. Dream Center campus, you are loved. You are heard all the way across town. I'm glad you're with us today. Our Republic campus, thank you so much. We're glad you're with us. And those joining us online, whether it's right now or in the future, however that works, we're glad you're here today. Well, this is a great weekend. We have tonight at 4:30 at the Springfield campus, also streaming live to the Nixa campus. At 4:30 is a masterclass on the Enneagram. And I'm excited about this. It's absolutely free. And we have childcare and we have food provided. I was going to say dinner provided, but if you're thinking dinner, then you'd be like, oh, it's like a snack. But if I say food, you're like, that's kind of like dinner. So either way, but it's free and it's at 4:30. We're gonna be prepared to check in kids and serve some food at 4. So that at 4:30, Dr. Swift is going to start right at 4:30. It'll probably be about an hour and a half. It's going to be a great time. Now, why I'm so excited about this series we're in called Dead Aim, it's been looking at the 7 deadly sins. The thing is, the earliest writings that we've had found on the Enneagram come from the Desert Fathers in the 400s, and they used the Enneagram to teach their kids a catechism of the 7 deadly sins, and they added 2, fear and deceit are the 2 they added. And so if you resonate with the 7 deadly sins that we've been going through, and you're an Enneagram buff, you probably recognize, oh yeah, same. Yeah, absolutely. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at that together today. Why I think it's beneficial is we all show up to the world in a natural way that might help us survive early on, but might not help us thrive in the long term. And so there are some things that left unchecked will short circuit us from God's best in our lives. And so we want to join the psalmist as he says, search my heart, O God, see if there be any wicked way in me. Spoiler alert, there is. And all of us have a natural draw towards one of these sins that we've been talking about. So I'd encourage you. So Dr. Swift, let me say this too. Dr. Swift, he's not allowed to say it, but I can say he's my therapist. And so the beauty of Dr. Swift in my life, he's been a gift because he helped me when I was stuck. 7 years ago, I met him and he helped me understand how, why I got stuck, and more importantly, what are some things I can do to continue moving forward? And so he utilizes the Enneagram. I became a fan of it, and that's what I studied in my doctoral. My dissertation was about using the Enneagram in management. So I really believe in this tool could be helpful. So I encourage you, even if you're not planned, not registered, it would help for us if you registered real quick. But if you know someone in your world that can use that at one of Nixa or Springfield, 4:30 today, we'd love to have you join us. It's not too late. Also, last weekend, awesome weekend. I was gone at a wedding, but I was able to watch online. Jody gave a phenomenal message on the sin of pride, and it was kind of funny. She was sharing a traveling moment, that she was vulnerable in sharing this moment, and I had just experienced one of those moments when I was a little embarrassed of how I behaved, and then I listened to her message, and if you have no idea what I'm saying, all of our messages are online and they're waiting for you. And so, but she did a great job talking about pride. But last week, also we had what we call Summer Splash. We had 65 people get baptized last Saturday night at Summer Splash. It was awesome. So cool. Came on the heels of our summer camp, our student ministry teams, volunteers and staff working together. There's about 150, 175 students during the week at these camp events. I'm so excited about what God's doing there. And so, as a matter of fact, this year we've had more people make that decision of going public with their faith through water baptism. More people already than we have previous all of last year. And we believe that that's the most important metric It's not about how many people show up. It's not about, maybe you grew up in a church environment. A lot of you probably did. And maybe there's different ways to measure someone saying yes to Jesus. Maybe in your setting, it was an organ playing and they would come just as they were to the front. Maybe you were more comfortable playing peekaboo with a pastor with no one looking around. Raise your hand. There's lots of ways. Maybe mark a card. I'm saying yes to Jesus. Lots of ways to say yes to Jesus. But when someone goes wet publicly, that's pretty cool, right? I think that's probably the number one indicator of someone, as a general rule, saying, hey, this is a moment I want to make a declaration. So love that. So anyway, in this series, we're talking about these things that we fall in. And what I want us to do is I want us to grow. And one of the things that we got to learn if we're going to grow is we got to learn how to get up when we fall down. When life hits us, when life blindsides us, or when we mess up. We got to learn how to go. We're all about finding Jesus. We want environments where people find Jesus, where it makes sense, where you can hear Jesus talk to you in your own language, right? And it makes sense to you, whether you're at kid point, whether you're in students, whether you're adult, young adult, wherever it might be. We want environments where people find Jesus and say yes to Jesus, but we also want to follow Jesus. And we need to be able to learn how to pick ourselves up when it's not exciting anymore, or when we realize that we've broken our end of the deal, or whatever it might be. So as we think about that in this series, I was reminded this week of there's 2 Kansas City Chiefs players. Any Chiefs fans in the house? Okay. Prove it with your draft. Okay, but there's 2 Kansas City Chiefs players in the history of the kingdom who have won the Associated Press Offensive Player of the Year award. Only 2. Can you name one of them who currently plays? Mahomes. Yep, that's right. Okay, he did. Shocker. Okay, but there was someone else in 2002, the first Chief to ever win the Offensive Player of the Year award for the NFL from the AP. It was, anybody know? Marcus Allen was awesome, but he did not. Matt Castle? Nope, wasn't Matt Castle. Priest Holmes, indeed, 2002, Priest Holmes, okay? I don't know if that came from this side of the Springfield campus or if we heard you from the Dream Center, but Priest Holmes, 2002, he won this award. And what's interesting, he ran for a ton of yards that year, but he also ran in his career over 8,000 yards in his career as a Chief. Primarily as a Chief. 8,000 yards. You don't look impressed. Okay, let me put it to you this way. He ran for nearly 5 miles in his career. You don't look impressed. Honestly, some of you are like, I could run 5 miles. No, not all of you can. I've been watching, okay? I'm just, And some of you are like, though, you're like, I did it this morning, okay? Cool. But let me say it this way. He ran 5 miles, and every 4.6 yards, he had someone bigger than him with a running start smack him in the ribs and knock him to the ground. You signing up for that fun run, okay? 5 miles, every stride, every 4.6 yards, someone bigger than you tackling you to the ground, and you have to get up, and every 4.6 yards, there you go again, 4.6 yards. By the time you get to the 5 mile marker, give the boy the medal, right? That's what faith looks like, is getting up after you've been hit. Some of you made a commitment to faith. It was so exciting. You had this promise, but the process was a beast, right? You're like, oh, it's not what I thought. And you promised Jesus everything, but you don't feel like you're a better parent. You don't feel like you're a better spouse. Maybe you slip back into a weekend of addiction. Maybe you're embarrassed of how you behaved last month and you fell down. Get back up. You get back up and you keep going forward and you snap the ball and you take it again and you get back up, and that's what you do. Everything that's important, there's a big promise. That's what gets us into it. And then there's a difficult process. If you've been married, you know what I'm talking about. If you've been married multiple times, you really know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? You got this promise. You're like, this is exciting. And then you're like, wow, this is difficult. Even the best of marriages are going to be difficult. It's a process. If y'all have had a kid before, you know what I'm talking about. We're expecting. That's awesome. Then they're 4, okay? You know what I'm saying? It's a process. It's difficult. Doesn't mean you give up, but it means it's a process. If you've ever had a puppy before, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone falls in love with the front end of a puppy. I'm telling you, they got a back end, right? There's a process to that sucker. I want to look in Scripture at a guy who had a promise from God. His name is Abraham. We're going to look at a story that really predates his kind of divine name change to now we know him as Abraham. He's going to be referred to in our story today as Abram. But he's known as the father of the Jewish people. He's known as the father of faith. And what I love about this story, it shows that he's not always faithful. And not that I like to, mock someone publicly. I just like to know that I'm not the only one. And I hope you can be encouraged as we look at someone whose legacy is of being faithful, but his reality was he struggled. And I hope we can learn some things so that we can impact our own legacy. So as we talk about this, it's the sin this week is the sin of greed, okay? And we're gonna dive into, as a matter of fact, on our outline that you can find on the North Point Mo app, there's an outline if you're into taking notes and email notes or whatever it is. But let me talk about what greed is for today, because greed isn't always like Scrooge McDuck, I'm counting my coins. Greed is when you are focused on taking care of you because ain't anybody else taking care of you. That's greed. More ugly way to say the same thing is greed is you're taking care of you because you don't believe God is taking care of you. So you got to look out for you because whatever reason you don't believe God is. It's greed. It could be financially. It could be in relationships. It could be with your career. It could be in a lot of ways. Greed is saying, no one else is looking out for me, I'm gonna look out for me. Now, when I was a kid, I had this with food. That's not true. All my life, I've had this with food, okay? Is like when Leanne says, doesn't order her fries on her own, I'm like, get some fries. She's like, no, I'll have some of yours. I'm like, no, it's not how we do this, okay? She's like, I don't want a whole order of fries. I'm like, I don't mind throwing out yours. I'll probably even eat your extra, but I want a full order of my fries, right? Greed. It started when I was a kid. Like I was a kid, I would do, anytime it was mealtime, I would do complicated math equations. I would look at the amount of pizza that was there. I would divide it by the amount of people that were in the room. I would take into factor the amount of people, the weight that people had, and the amount of feeding patterns that they had in their previous past. And I would determine how many pieces do I need to grab my first pass at this pizza box. When I was a kid, my mom would tell me stories that she would play the airplane game, put a fork on a food and try and get your kid to eat it. Wasn't necessary with me. But she would put the food on a fork and she'd be like, airplane buzzing around. And I would just instantly cry because I didn't want it to circle the airport. I wanted that into the portal, okay? I was always food obsessed. And I don't know why was I afraid that I'm not gonna get enough. I never went without, right? But it's this scarcity mind frame that sometimes we naturally have. So one of the things I put on the top of our outline is this, is that making sure you don't miss out might be the number one reason why you're missing out. Making sure that you don't miss out might be the very thing that causes you to miss out. And so I want us to do a quick little self-inventory, okay? Self-inventory, see if you got any greed in your life, okay? If not, you go straight to the Waffle House. Here we go, okay? Number one is this. Now mark it down. Either tally it, okay? Write it down. Raise your hand if this is you. No, don't do that. You can put it on your fingers, but I'd tuck them in the pits so no one else sees, okay? So keep a tally to see if this message might apply to you. You might need this message if you can remember a decision you made and the first person you thought of that might benefit from this decision was you. Whether it was where you're gonna go out. If you remember a time where you made a decision based on you, give yourself a tally. If it's more fun to keep score for the person next to you, do that too, that's fine, okay? Second thing is this, you might need a message on greed if you tend to put financial opportunity above family and your own health. That doesn't mean you would ever admit it. Help me help you understand what that means. If you ever are accused of working too much by your family and you say to your family, I'm doing it for you, okay? Just go ahead and put that tally up there. Or if people are like, man, you got to take some time off, you're burning the candle at both ends, and you're like, ain't got no time for that. Go ahead and give yourself a tally. 3, if you ever experience frustration when scrolling through social media at what other people are doing or what they own, give yourself a tally. 4, if you can remember an argument you've had over money, give yourself a tally. And it's probably over how much extra money you want to give away, but that still counts, okay? Number 5, if you've ever said or thought you plan to be generous one day. Like one day I'm going to be really generous. Like one day, here's what I plan to do. One day I am going to give back. One day, if that's, give yourself a tally. Now, you don't tell me your score or anything like that, but I want you to know your score. If you have anything there, I think we can learn something from greed, okay? Now, I scored pretty high in this exam, okay? I did real well. If you got a 0 though, I just encourage you to go back and listen to Jody's message on pride last week. Okay, so here we go, okay? Let's talk about greed. Little backstory. So Abram has got this nephew Lot. We're gonna look at it in Genesis chapter 13. Really quick, Genesis chapter 12. There's a really cool story where Abraham hears God say, hey, I want you to sacrifice your kid. And so take him up a mountain. And we look at that as Americans in the 21st century. We're like, what a horrid God. Well, God never intended for him to sacrifice his kid. Matter of fact, he was explaining he is the one God of all tribes and cultures that isn't demanding sacrifice. He's gonna be the one doing the sacrifice. So when Abraham goes to raise the knife to sacrifice his kid, God's like, nope, I'm sacrificing my kid. I'm gonna provide. I want everyone to know this new faith that you're the father of is gonna be set apart. It's not about what you bring to the table, it's about what I bring to the table. So really cool story in Genesis 12. God was so impressed that this old man obeyed God. He was shocked, he just started swearing. Because sometimes your obedience surprises God, he'll just start swearing. And he just did this, I swear upon the seashore, look at all that sand, you're gonna have more descendants than that. I swear by the moon and the stars in the sky. It sounds like a casino performer, right? No. So it says, I swear, as many stars are in the sky, you're gonna have more kids than that. You, because you're faithful, because you depend on me, you are gonna be the father of many. And then he says to him, I'm gonna give you a promised land. You're gonna have so many kids, you need to put them somewhere. I've got a promised land for you. And then the rest of the Old Testament is about their pursuit of finally getting the promised land that took them hundreds of years to get to. But anyway, there's a promise. And the promise is exciting. If you go to Hong Kong Inn after church today and you crack open your prophecy pastry or fortune cookie, however you're raised, and you crack that open and it's a message from God, you'd be like, this is awesome. God spoke to me. Everyone gets excited when God speaks to you because the promise is cool. But the process is a beast, right? And so God says to him, here's what I want you to do. I got this promise for you, so here's the instructions. I want you to leave your father's land, leave your father's family, and just your immediate family and very few possessions. I want you to come to the land I'm gonna show you. And so Abraham's like, I love your promise, hate your process. Some of you are like, yeah, I'm there. God's like, I declare freedom over your life from that addiction. You're like, amen, right now, miracle. Let me feel it like electricity. And he's like, well, actually, no, it's gonna be a process. You're gonna go to a meeting every day. You're going to have an accountability partner. You're like, lame, okay? Process. Sometimes God's promise is missed out because the process is ignored. And God says, Abraham, trust me, depend on me. I'm gonna provide this stuff in the land. And I don't want you to bring anybody and anything except your immediate family. So the first thing Abraham does, he gets on his cell phone and texts Lot, his nephew. He's like, hey, Lot, God's got a big promise in my life. You wanna be a part of it? Hey, come help. That's disobedience. He didn't say to bring Lot. And if you've read the Old Testament a few times, you might be familiar that this mistake that Abraham made, not trusting God and trying to take care of himself because he wasn't quite confident that God was going to take care of him. And he probably felt more spiritual than that, saying, hey, God, I know you got a lot to worry about. So why don't you not worry about me? I'll take care of me. And when we get there, then you can do the blessing part. But it was really Abraham out of greed saying, I don't know that you got my best intention in mind, so I'm going to do what I'm most comfortable with. I'm bringing Lot with me. Lot became a thorn in Abraham's side for the rest of Abraham's life. Lot ended up getting in all shades of trouble. Lot ended up bringing Abraham a lot of trouble. Lot's kids end up becoming the father of the Moabites and the Ammonites, who end up being a thorn in the flesh for Abraham's descendants for the rest of the Old Testament. So he goes and he grabs Lot. They make it to Bethel, this promised land, not the music studio in California, but it was one in the Near East. And so they get to this place called Bethel. And then Abraham's like, on the way here, we passed this place called Egypt, and wow, it looks swanky. We're just gonna, hey, God, I'll be right back. I forgot something. And he and Lot go back to Egypt. Well, they get in all types of trouble there, but they get themselves out of it with shrewd dealing and negotiation, and they end up becoming wealthy in Egypt. And then they're like, okay, now we're ready for the promise. Now they head back to Bethel and they're loaded. And back in those days, you didn't have all your money in retirement accounts. You didn't have it all in investment properties. You didn't have it all in your vehicles and your clothing. You didn't have it all in this big house. You didn't have it all in stocks. Actually, that's exactly where you had it. You had it all in stocks, okay? But like the cattle kind, the lamb kind, the kitten kind, or I don't know what kind of stocks they had. But they had lots of cattle and livestock. And so all of a sudden now they have so much livestock because they got ahead of God and went back to Egypt and negotiated and took care of themselves just in case God wasn't going to take care of them. The process was too much. They didn't like it. But it wasn't about God was like, I don't know how I'm going to help you. Give me some time, I'll figure it out. God was saying this whole shooting match is going to be defined by you depending on me and me proving that I am a provider, which is the very word he said to Abram in Genesis 12 is I am Jehovah Jireh, God the provider. I provide the sacrifice. I provide the place. I provide the possessions. Let's build this faith. But when you become your own provider, you are given the middle finger to God and saying, I don't need you, I've got me covered. We would never do that, rarely do that. But that's what Abram was doing. So then they're loaded. They get to Bethel, and now they've got so much stock, so much cattle, so many possessions, that they have so many employees working for them to take care of them, and now there's this big fight. The fight between Lot's employees and Abram's employees. They're like, this land ain't big enough for the both of us. We've got so much stuff now. How in the world are we ever gonna pay for it? How many of you feel bad for those guys right now? Like, what a bummer. God told them to take nothing. They did it their own way, and now they're loaded, and now they're whining. How are we going to protect all of our assets? Like it'd be like someone complaining to you about their tax bracket. Man, I make so much money. Here's how much percentage of tax I have to pay. And you're like, I'll trade you. You're like your pain in the neck is my prayer, right? Like that's my prayer request. So Abram and Lot, now they've got everything and they don't know what to do. And here's where Abram finally gets back up. He missed it, he messed up, he missed out by trying to take care of himself, and now he's got an opportunity, and they're gonna choose which land to go. Abraham's gonna choose generosity, and Lot is gonna choose greed. And here's what it says in Genesis 13. It says, Abram says to Lot, let's not have fighting between us, between your shepherds and my shepherds. After all, we're family. Look around, isn't there plenty of land out there? Let's separate. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. Abraham didn't have to let the young dude choose. Abraham, especially in that culture, was able to choose. And he's saying, hey, I'm going to trust. Something he hadn't been doing a good job of recently, but he decided to trust in this situation. So then Lot looked. He saw the whole plain of the Jordan spread out, well watered. This is before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, which is a fantastic story that you're not going to find in the picture Bible. But anyway, that's later. We're not going to get into that today. He saw this land that looked like the Garden of Eden, God's garden. It looked like Egypt, this very lush land, and stretching all the way to Zoar. Lot took the whole plain of the Jordan. Lot set out to the east. That's how they came to part company. Uncle and nephew. Abram settled in Canaan. Lot settled in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent near Sodom. And the people of Sodom were evil, flagrant sinners against God. After Lot separated from him, God said to Abram. Okay, time out for a second. A couple of things that we need to hit, and then I'll finish that. Lot looks out, and he sees two types of lands. Dry, crusty, rock-filled land. That was actually the promised land that God had already promised to Abram. And this green, lush valley. And a city, and Lot's like, I can negotiate, I can trade, I can make a lot of money in the city. This is gonna be great for what I have. And so he goes there because it looked better. But appearances aren't always really accurate. Like, things aren't the way they always appear. Have you ever ordered something on the menu and it didn't look at all like you thought it would look, okay? Or it didn't taste like you wanted it to? Or have you ever seen those Instagram videos or TikTok videos where it looks like a KitchenAid, but you can cut into it and it's a piece of cake, okay? You're like, what? I didn't know that was cake. Things aren't always the way they appear. I remember the first time I played competitive pickleball. I was excited. I was with Rick, buddy at Nixa campus. We go to a pickleball club. We show up there, and it was a crowded club. It was so crowded, and if you play pickleball, you understand when it's really crowded, you just set your paddle up, and that's the line of who's next. You don't know who you're going to play. We got next, right? And when it came our turn to go on the court, we didn't know which court we're going to be on. We didn't know who we're going to play. So we grab our paddles, we walk to the court, to the open court, and we're playing two 80-year-old ladies. And I was like, I don't want to do this. This ain't going to be fair because I'm an athlete. I had no idea how accurate that statement was, but how wrong it was of who was going to be it unfair for, okay? I'm like, this will be a piece of cake. We start playing these two 80-year-old ladies in pickleball, and I played tennis forever. I'm sweating, I'm swinging. I keep hitting it to this one lady right in the middle of the court. I just kept hitting it to her. Her name's Annette. It's a pickleball joke. I kept hitting into the net. But anyway, so I keep, and I'm like, we're running into each other. We're running into the walls. We're sweating. We're gasping. We're wheezing. And these 80-year-old ladies are like, dink, dink, dink. I mean, they crushed us. We're walking off the court like, it's not what we thought it would be, right? It's not always as it appears. When you choose greed, what's ironic is greed is really most harmful to the person who's trying to be greedy. And when you trust God, it doesn't need to always look like he's going to provide. It's called faith. Sometimes we're all about faith until we need it. Faith by definition means you don't even see how God's going to pull you through. So you got to have faith. Abraham knows what it's like to not have faith. So this is a time where he's like, I'm just going to have faith. I'm going to trust that no matter what side I'm left with, God will provide. That was his promise. I'm going to go with his process. So then it says this, the people, after Lot separated from him, God said to Abram, after Lot separated from Abram. Interesting, in Genesis 12, before Lot comes in the picture, God spoke to Abraham 2 times. 2 different times God spoke to him. The entire time Lot's with him, no talkie from God. And the moment Lot leaves, God speaks to him again. I know that's not what we're talking about today, but maybe that's what you need to hear today. Sometimes we feel like there's a gap between us and God's direction. I've never heard God speak audibly to me. I hope he sounds like Morgan Freeman, but I don't know. But I know what it's like to have this gap thinking like, I don't even know intrinsically what direction I'm supposed to go. I want to be lined up and I don't know. And I don't believe that every time you can't hear from God, it means that you're sinning, because that'll make you feel like toxic shame, and that's just bad theology. At the same time, I think it's a helpful tool to always check yourself and make sure that's not the reason, because sometimes it's the things I'm holding on to that are the thing that prevent me from hearing from God. And it's always helpful to ask yourself, is it possible I'm connected to something that's not allowing me to focus on what God wants to say to me? And at that point, I need to give someone the gift of goodbye and say, you know what, for whatever reason, when this is in my life or when you are in my life, this is distracting me from what I know God's called me to be, right? And there's a whole bunch of messages on how you can do that and be a nice guy. Okay, but bottom line is you can't let anything, any pursuit of anything get you from hearing from God. And God spoke to him, and he begins to give him the promise again. He says, open your eyes, look around, north, south, east, west, everything you see, the whole land spread out before you. I'm going to give you this land, and to your children forever. I'll make your descendants like dust. Counting your descendants will be as impossible as counting the dust on the earth. So on your feet, get up, Priest Holmes, get up. Go another 4.6 yards. Get on your feet and get moving. And you're going to have another challenge. Get back on your feet and keep moving. And that's what we want to be. So greed isn't something you're going to kill and be done with and be like, yeah, I remember I used to have greed, but I gave it to God when I was 13 and I haven't had it ever since. Greed's one of the stinking whack-a-mole things that keep popping up, and we got to fight it. So when we look at this, here's a principle for us. It's amazing how much God will give when we don't focus on getting. If my pursuit in life isn't to acquire, if I don't have the desire to acquire everything, it's amazing how much God will give us. And not necessarily possessions, not necessarily money, not necessarily opportunity, but fulfillment and purpose and significance and community. When I'm not focused on getting mine, I can all of a sudden be focused on reflecting his. When I'm not focused on accumulating, I can be focused on generosity, right? And Abraham learned this in his life, in his trust, in his time, and certainly in his treasure as well. We see different times. Proverbs 28:22 is the life verse for Lot. It says this: the stingy are eager to get rich and unaware that poverty awaits them. Ironic. This absolute pursuit of getting rich, and side note, Lot did get rich. But he ended up losing everything. Everything. It's foolish to make that your priority. Now, I know that maybe some of you are rich. The truth is, almost all of you are rich if we think globally. But some of you might even be rich compared to most people in the Ozarks. You don't need to feel weird about that. Because if you feel weird about that, then that means you feel bad because you did it. That would be a sign of greed. Yeah, it's a weird mask for it, but it is. You should be thankful for what you have and focus on how you share. If you don't have a lot, you shouldn't feel weird about that. You say, well, here's the deal. God, give me my daily bread. Some of you are like, daily bread, that's cute. I used to pray for that when I was 20. But I figured out how to build me a bread factory. I don't even need God anymore. It's greed. Whether you have a lot or a little, what if every day you had the discipline of what I think I own is really on loan from God? So God, thank you. I don't even need all of this, but I'm thankful that you trust me to distribute it, right? One of my favorite organizations is Convoy of Hope. And I know we got a lot of, I don't know if you call them hopers, convoyers, North Pointers who go to work there. Okay, but anyway, they're known for distribution. Do you know that they receive a lot of goods and services every year? But they don't just build more storehouses, right? Like, that wouldn't be attractive or exciting. No one's like, I can't believe they donate all that stuff. They're like, isn't that awesome? Everything that comes in goes out. Everything that comes in that goes out. Sometimes they have to get creative because so much came in. They have to call people. Hey, do you know anybody who needs this? Do you know anybody who needs this? And we look at that and we say, that's awesome. You are a mini Convoy of Hope. Whatever comes in, you're looking around. And if you're the type of person to be like, well, no, after I have all mine, right? That's greed. What if we lived our life, whether we had a lot or a little, with that mentality? Matthew 6:33 says this, seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. You don't even need to go hunting for it. I'll take care of all your needs, not your greeds. And some of us are like, God, will you provide all my greeds according to your riches in Christ Jesus? No, but he'll provide all your needs. And when you focus on that, it's not a vow to poverty. It's a commitment to generosity. So 2 habits to develop as we wrap it up. 2 habits. Number 1 is this, flee greed. Every time you sense it, flee it. Even the most generous people I know have to do battle of this almost every day. Because sometimes we start thinking, I made this, I earned this, I deserve this. That's greed. So I gotta say, okay, God, thank you. Thank you that I'm in a spot now where you trust me with this and where other people trust me with this. God, how can I be impactful towards your mission with this? When I have increase, do I raise my standard of living and not my standard of giving? That makes me greedy. And it doesn't mean you can't have nice things. It means nice things can't have you. You just got to be able to say, hey, God, I want to be generous and thankful and grateful, because gratitude is the antidote of greed. Every time I can say, God, thank you for this. I promise you, every time I don't pray over my meal because it's a habit and my grandma made me do. I pray over my meal because it's a discipline. I don't want to go 6 meals in a row without thinking that it was from God, not from me. Right? So I don't know what it is for you, but you work it in. Flee it, run from it. I wrote it down this way, that greed isn't something to fight, it's something to flee, it's something to run from. Luke chapter 12 says it this way. Jesus says, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life doesn't consist in the abundance of his possessions. Like if Jesus said to you, hey, watch out. Like yesterday, I was leaving my house. Like I went out my front door at 8 in the morning. I'd go running out my house and I'm going for a jog. And I almost run into a police officer who's got a long gun and he's standing right in front of my house. He's like, whoa. He says, get back in there. There's an armed person running around in your neighborhood. He says, lock the doors. I didn't be like, nah, I'm good. Like, you know this. I got the build of a victim. I am not, like, when he says, be on guard, go in, lock your doors. First thing I do, Janaea, Leanne, lock the doors. There's a guy running around our neighborhood. He's trying to get in our backyard. Well, he wasn't, but be on guard, right? Dude, I made Leanne go walk Millie in the middle of the night last night because I'm still nervous about this guy, right? So Jesus is the one, when you get out for the day and you go running in the day, he's the one that stops you and says, whoa, I gotta warn you. Greed is out there. Don't be greedy. And you gotta be like, oh yeah, no, I don't wanna. But we're like, oh, I thought it was something big. Greed? I'm not too scared of that. Matter of fact, I kind of enjoy it. Here's what it says in Ephesians. This list of like the top 10 naughty things not to do. It says, but among you there must not even be a hint of sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed. I'm like, honestly, like that's really one of them. Greed? Wanting more than you have? Thinking about yourself first, arrows in? That's one of the big ones. Like I can see the others. It's a deadly sin? Is that what church history said? Yeah. Because it teaches you that you are the provider of everything you need and you are the solver of every problem you have. And Jesus says, let me teach you how to pray. Give us this day our daily bread. I follow you. And Abraham had to learn, I could go to a place that doesn't look fulfilling, but if God promised it, you can't stop me. I'm not looking for the place that has the best fruit. I'm looking for a place where I can plant the seed. And when I do that, I'm gonna trust God and do the right thing. So you flee greed, and the last thing is you feed generosity. You feed it. Generous feelings and good intentions don't cut it. You gotta do something. And I'm not saying that next time you check out on your own at the self-check aisle at Walmart, And then it says, you have one more question to answer. Would you like to tip this computer another 20% for your groceries? That you have to say, well, there's a message on greed. I better say yes, okay? Because that is my tipping point. Anyway, but bottom line is we do have to look at this and say, what am I doing? Not what might I do one day. What am I doing? Because greed and generosity can't coexist. You might have a generous heart. Most of you do. But you can still be greedy. You might have great intentions, but if you don't do it, you're greedy. You might have a greedy mind, but you're generous because you fight it with action. And when you discipline your life to feed generosity, what you feel is overrated. Give yourself a break. You're a human. It's not going to be until you skate through those pearly gates one day, if the songs are correct, that you will have to stop fighting this battle. That's all right, but feed generosity. As a church, one of the things I'm going to invite our ushers at most of our campuses, ushers are going to come forward, Dream Center campus. You've got a table that is self-ushing you right there. There's a bucket right in the middle. But as the ushers prepare, in just a second, they're going to serve us in this way. I want you to look at the card you have. If you're joining us online, there's a link for you. I want to talk about 3 events that are coming up in the next few weeks, which is one way that we give back. As a community, we can't be about attendance and numbers and buildings. We'll have those things, but that's not our mission. Our mission is serving the community, serving the community, serving the community. We must be about it. What we do outside these walls has to be louder than what we say inside these walls. One of the events that we do every year is a give back event. This next Saturday in Nixa, from Nixa Junior High, we're gonna be able to serve 900 students as they prepare with the anxieties of a new school year, and we get to fight the idea that they have not enough, and we get to share. And people have been shopping, and we've been donating as a church, and we have volunteer opportunities. Nixa campus, that's a big focus for your campus. We still have volunteer opportunities for this Saturday. You don't have to be at the Nixa campus to be part of it. If that date works better for you, you can sign up online on our website. Then we have 2 weeks from today, on the 13th of August, on a Sunday in Republic, instead of service that day in Republic from 10 to 12 is going to serve at Sweeney Elementary, planting and pruning and painting. And so we're going to do that in just a couple weeks. And some of you are going to be like, well, what about church? Trust me, you'll have plenty of church by serving Sweeney Elementary on that Sunday. So sign up, let's make it happen. Springfield on the 19th on a Saturday is going to be serving at the Dream Center with an event to serve hundreds of our neighbors. And we're shopping for the next couple of weeks. We're still shopping, and we're putting them in barrels in our campuses. So maybe you got the gift of shop, turn that into a spiritual weapon, and you go shopping for kids, fill those bags up, you can drop in the barrels, and then we're going to get them to the Dream Center, and we got hundreds of opportunities to serve that day. Here's what I'm asking all North Pointers. I know not all North Pointers can, but there's 3 different days. I'm curious if maybe you can be a part of one of those. And if you can go online today, sign up for one of them. You don't have to be a Nixon to serve at Nixa or Republican. Anyway, let's not even go there. But you can serve at any of them no matter what your background is. Winky, wink, wink. And so I'm saving that for November. But anyway, what I want us to do is I want us to serve. Let's be generous. It's also our opportunity to give back financially. Again, it's not one way to feed generosity. I believe when we invest together, we can do great things and help people find and follow Jesus. If you came prepared, you can certainly drop that in the bucket. If you're a guest with us, zero expectation for you to give today. We're thrilled you're here. We want to make a donation in your honor just because you're a guest. So let us know you're a guest by dropping that card in the bucket. We're going to make sure that we send you an email and you can direct our giving that way. So ushers, you can pass the buckets. Tables, you can hold the bucket at Dream Center. We can put our cards and our giving in the bucket.